friend will know, last year the government signed a £100 million Falkirk and Grangemouth growth deal with the Scottish Government. At the budget this year, we further recognise Grangemouth's centuries of history as a key UK industrial site by announcing additional investment of up to £14.5 million to support industrial projects that can create jobs. Alongside this, the National Wealth Fund is ready to invest £200 million alongside the private sector to help unlock Grangemouth's full potential and secure our clean energy future.
Ewan Steinbach.
Additional £14 million plus to get new industry delivered quicker in Grangemouth, and the £25 million to finalise the free port in the budget 2 weeks ago is welcome. Forth Valley College is vital to giving local working class kids the skills they need to grasp the new opportunities that must come to Grangemouth. But it has been failed by the SNP Scottish Government's staggering 20% cut to colleges since 2021, and Alloa campus now faces closure. Will the Minister consider stepping in with direct skills support for this vital college?
Minister.
Mr Speaker, education and skills policy, including the funding and operation of colleges, is fully devolved to the Scottish Government, and that means it is for Scottish ministers to decide how to support Forth Valley College with the overall settlement. Now, Mr Speaker, as my honourable friend will know, the spending review provided the Scottish Government with their largest settlement in real terms since devolution in 1998, and the budget provided an additional £820 million for Scotland through the Barmont formula. Mr Speaker, we will be campaigning in the months ahead to make sure decisions about how to invest that funding in Scotland's future are taken by Anna Sarwar and a Scottish Labour government.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The challenges that they experience in the businesses of Forth Valley is the highest industrial energy prices in the G7. It's Labour's farm tax, Labour's family business tax, Labour's £26 billion raid on the cost of employing people, and Labour's fiscal drag on everybody earning, the Potemkin support for Grangemouth, the ambivalence to Mossmoran, and the unfunding of the Acorn project. How long does the Chancellor think Scotland should put up with this chaos from Westminster?
Minister.
Mr Speaker, he's very happy to criticise tax decisions taken by this government. But where does he think the largest spending review settlement since devolution began came from? Where does he think the £820 million announced at the autumn budget came from? He needs to support tax decisions that we take if he wants the investment to go into Scotland.
Jim Conlon.
Question number 10, Mr Speaker.
Minister.
Sorry, Mr Speaker. With permission, Mr Speaker, I would like to answer this question with question number 19. Mr Speaker, the Spending Review 2025 provided record investment in the NHS, including the largest ever health capital budget. That investment has enabled a reduction in waiting list of 230,000 with an extra 5.2 million NHS appointments. At Autumn Budget 2025, the Chancellor protected NHS investment by allowing it to retain and reinvest efficiency savings in 28-29, as well as making available upfront funding to abolish NHS England, a move that will unlock £1 billion in savings by the end of the Parliament, which can instead be used to support frontline care.
Jim Conlon.
For his response. When I was in sixth form, I became one of the, at the end of the last Labour government, I became one of the youngest people in Britain to have a hip replacement. And I will always be grateful to the incredible NHS staff who cared for me. But between 2011 and 2024, because of savage Tory cuts, the waiting list for hip replacements at King's College Hospital Trust, which serves my constituency of Beckenham and Penge, more than doubled. The Tories left thousands of people waiting months on end. With thanks to record investment from this Labour government, those waiting lists are starting to fall. Will the Minister commit to continue this investment in the NHS?
Excellent.
Well, Mr Speaker, I thank my honourable friend for his question, and like him, I will always be grateful to the incredible NHS staff who got me back fighting strong after I was diagnosed with a neuromuscular condition in my 20s. Mr Speaker, people across the country have stories like ours, and that is because we all depend on the NHS. And that is why it is such a priority for us as a government to invest in our health service, to get it back on its feet, and to build an NHS that is fit for the future.
Sam Nopper.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Can I thank the Chancellor for investing in our community care? In Stroud, the two beating hearts of our community are GP surgeries and our village pubs, which actually provide and reduce social isolation. So today the publicans are all meeting in Stroud Brewery discussing the impacts of business rates. So could I invite the Minister to perhaps discuss with a pint, over a pint, how we can help our pub landlords?
But there we are. Minister.
Well, I thank my honourable friend for his question. He's right to point to the role that pubs play in the heart of local communities, so I assume the pub and GP surgeries are separate in the example that he gave there. Mr Speaker, as my honourable friend, the Exchequer Secretary, set out earlier, we're in a situation where temporary pandemic business rates relief is coming to an end and the new revaluation, which is post-pandemic, comes into effect. In that context, we're supporting the high street, including pubs, with permanently lower tax rates for eligible retail, hospitality and leisure, as well as a support package that means most properties seeing increases will see them capped at 15% or less next year, or £800 for the smallest.
Blackman.
One of the challenges the NHS faces is dealing with people that are street homeless and then have to go into hospital, obviously, for treatment. They're then discharged, and it's almost like a rotating saw, unfortunately. What is needed now is targeted funding to make sure that the NHS discharges people into somewhere they have a safe place to live. Will the Minister take that challenge up, particularly at this time of year?
Minister.
Well, I thank the honourable member for his question, and he's absolutely right to point to the fact that people showing up in hospital can offer and reflect other social issues, whether that be homelessness, child poverty, or other challenges that people face. As a government, we take tackling homelessness, by which I mean temporary accommodation and rough sleeping, incredibly seriously, and we'll be publishing a homelessness strategy shortly.
Mr Speaker, Ashford and St Peter's Hospital, which serves my Woking constituency, has an £80 million repair backlog. When will the government allocate sufficient funding to fix our crumbling hospitals, including at Ashford and St Peter's?
Minister.
Well, Mr Speaker, as the honourable gentleman will know, the coalition government, which his party was part of, slashed capital investment in our health service. We've restored capital investment in our health service, which is critical to getting it back on its feet. And I hope that if he is making the request for greater investment in the NHS, he will change his mind and correct the record and support the tax changes we made to make that possible.
John Mill.
Question number 11, Mr Speaker.
Minister.
Me again. Mr Speaker, growth is the #1 mission of this government, and we are committed to unlocking growth in every corner of this country. We have committed £2.7 billion per year to support sustainable farming, £2.3 billion of transport funding for places beyond city regions through the local transport grant, and more than £1.9 billion for gigabit broadband and 4G connectivity. This funding will help tackle key blockers to growth in rural areas, helping to unlock the opportunities and benefits of growth for people right across the UK.
John Mill.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Later today, I'll be chairing a meeting of the APPG for rural business, which has a focus on generating rural growth. If we could push rural productivity closer to Western European averages, it would fix the government's budgetary black hole all by itself. So will the Minister agree to set a measurable target for increasing rural productivity so we can hold the government to account on progress?
Minister.
Well, Mr Speaker, I welcome the honourable gentleman for drawing attention to the importance of productivity in the UK economy and our prospects for growth, because as we know, Mr Speaker, the Office of Budget Responsibility reviewed the productivity impacts of the previous government's record in office, and they found that the decisions the previous government had taken over their 14 years meant we had a £16 billion revenue hit at public finances over this in the target year of the scorecard. Now, Mr Speaker, we know that that means productivity has been downgraded as a result of decisions taken by the previous government, but that gives us an opportunity. It gives us an opportunity not to be held back by the failures of the previous government and to exceed those forecasts in the future.
Noah Law.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Cornish communities and SMEs in the supply chains of Cornwall's most promising industries alike will have been delighted at the Chancellor's announcement of the Kenova Industrial Growth Fund in the recent budget. But does the Chief Secretary agree with me that these funds should be invested prudently, sustainably, and the proceeds recouped to the Cornish public's coffers so that they can be invested again in future projects?
Well, I thank my honourable friend for his question, and he and many of his neighbouring MPs are excellent advocates for Cornwall and for the benefits that Cornwall can bring to growth, both in the region where they represent and right across the country. I know that in the budget, the Chancellor was very keen to support investment in future industries in Cornwall. It's for the local council to deliver that. We'll be working closely with them to make sure that money is well spent. But the key thing for us, Mr Speaker, is to ensure that we are enabling people in Cornwall to be part of the economic growth mission of this government.
Richard for the Shadow Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As this is my last question before Christmas, I want to ask my counterpart a nice and constructive question. As he will know, rural residents and businesses already pay more on fuel than their urban counterparts, and there are fewer public transport options. So can he advise what were the results of his assessment of the relative impact on rural compared to urban areas of the budget's introduction of road pricing?
Mr. Speaker, I think the honourable gentleman was referring to the changes we announced in budget around electric vehicles and their contribution towards public finances. Mr. Speaker, if people drive electric vehicles, wherever in the country they drive them, they benefit from investment in roads and maintenance alongside those of us who drive petrol cars. So it's important to make sure that we make the tax system fit for the future. Mr. Speaker, this is a decision which people have talked about for many years. His party ducked that alongside many other difficult decisions. We are taking them head on to make sure we are fit and stable for the future.
Topicals Lorraine Baines.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question number 1.
Chancellor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. COVID fraud and error under the previous government's mismanagement cost the taxpayer £10.9 billion. They played fast and loose with the public purse and left the front doors wide open to fraud. That is why I've appointed a COVID Corruption Commissioner to carry out the independent review. This government is doing everything to recover taxpayers' money. We've already got back around £400 million, with more to come. That money belongs to the British people, in our communities and in our NHS. We welcome the publication of the Commissioner's independent report and we will respond fully in the new year.
Lorraine Baines.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The British people are paying the bill for criminal COVID fraud. Under the Conservatives, waste and corruption exploded and taxpayers' money was stolen. Will the Chancellor make sure that the Labour government continues to go after those who stole from the British taxpayer and make sure we get every penny back?
I couldn't agree more with my honourable friend. The previous government failed to protect public money, while this government has generated around £400 million in getting money back. And we all know what happened. The Tories dished out contracts to their friends and their donors, money that never belonged to them. This government will leave no stone unturned because that money belongs to taxpayers, not with cronies or crooks.
We come to the Shadow Chancellor, Sir Melstride.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the process surrounding the budget was utterly chaotic. We had months of damaging speculation, fuelled by briefings and leaks from the Treasury itself. That included briefings on the 14th of November, which moved markets and gave the appearance, at least, of being deliberately inaccurate, which is why we need the FCA to investigate. But can I ask the Chancellor a simple question? Did she at any point authorise or allow confidential details of the budget or the forecast to be briefed to the press? Yes or no?
Chancellor.
No.
Sir Melstride.
Mr. Speaker, the OBR's own guidance says, and I quote, "The interim rounds are transmitted to the Chancellor in confidence." Yet the Chancellor repeatedly stated before the budget that the OBR had downgraded their productivity forecasts. In her statement in Downing Street on the 4th of November, she said in relation to the OBR's forecast, and I quote, "It is already clear that the productivity performance is weaker than previously thought." Why did the Chancellor breach the confidentiality of the OBR?
Chancellor.
Well, in the spring statement, the OBR were clear that productivity was coming in lower than forecast, and they were clear that they were reviewing that over the summer. The numbers that the OBR have since published showed that in the final pre-measures forecast, the fiscal headroom was just over £4 billion. I was clear in my speech on the 4th of November. I didn't want to reduce the headroom. I wanted to increase it. I increased it to bring back the stability that's much needed in our economy after 14 years of Conservative government.
Thank
you, Mr. Speaker. Having worked on child poverty for over a decade, I've seen first-hand the damage to health, education prospects and life chances that poverty can cause, put at £40 billion a year by Child Poverty Action Group. Can the Chancellor assure me that the child poverty strategy will build on the historic budget announcement on the two-child cap and do more to reverse the appalling rise in poverty that we saw from the benches opposite?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the child poverty strategy published last week sets out the steps we are taking to support families now, as well as the building blocks we are putting in place for the long term. We will lift 550,000 children out of poverty, both by removing the two-child limit and through other measures, including the expansion of free school meals.
Ashley Forbes.
Mr. Speaker, unemployment is higher today than on the day the Chancellor took office. Would you tell the House why that is the case?
Chancellor.
Well, employment is up since we took office, and part of the reason for the disparity between those numbers is that people who were economically inactive are now seeking work. That's exactly what we want, for people to be seeking work and to get back into work. But there are more jobs in the economy today than when we took office.
The Blackwood.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As a former deputy head teacher, I and other school leaders knew of the pressures faced by having to turn libraries into classrooms due to underfunding by the Tories, disproportionately affecting children in our deprived areas. Does the Chancellor agree her £5 million commitment for libraries and books for secondary schools is an example of how increasing opportunity for all children is good for our future economy?
Chancellor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, my honourable friend will know that when I was at secondary school, my school library was turned into a classroom because there were more students than there was space. We have put £10 million into primary schools to get a library at every single primary school in this Parliament. And next year, to celebrate the National Year of Reading, we're putting £5 million into having more books at secondary schools, and I'm really proud to be doing that.
Matt Nichols.
110,000 jobs have been lost in the hospitality sector since this government came to office, and 8 pubs are closing every week, but the Chancellor's made it worse. Jonathan at the Devonport has told me that his business rates are set to treble. Does the Chancellor realise that her budget will cost people their jobs, landlords their businesses and communities their pubs?
Minister.
Let's be clear, nobody's business rate bills are tripling. It's important, as members of Parliament, if we have businesses coming to us to talk about the increases in their rateable values because of the unwinding of the effect of the pandemic, that we are clear on all sides of this House that the government has put in support to make sure that pubs and those who've seen their values go up will not increase next year. If the pub's rateable value is more than £100,000, they'll be capped at a 30% increase. If it's less, they'll be capped at 15% or 800. That's £4 billion of support, Mr. Speaker, that this government is providing.
Tom Hayes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. An independent and effective OBR is critical for our country, but it needs to do better. Why can't the OBR count? Why can't it forecast accurately, given the economy grew 50% faster than they predicted in March? And why can't it even publish the budget document without making a dog's breakfast of it? So, isn't it time for the OBR to properly price pro-growth measures and get behind our growth mindset?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I can be clear that we are committed to the OBR's independence as our forecaster and to the core role it plays within our fiscal framework. The Chancellor has also been clear, however, that forecasts are not our destiny. We will not let Britain be held back by the failures of the previous government. At the budget, the OBR revised upward its growth estimate for this year, and we are determined to exceed forecasts again.
Scotland.
Public R&D is so powerful for economic growth that US patents funded by it generate 12 times more growth than those that are not. But does the Chancellor accept the judgment of the OBR that UK public R&D will generate no additional incremental growth because we are not increasing it enough?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the government of course recognises that innovation is key to our long-term economic growth, to higher productivity and indeed to living standards as well. And that's exactly why we're investing more in R&D, and we've made other incentives available too.
Then make Elliott.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, it's been a rocky week for the Office for Budget Responsibility, so I'm glad that the Chief Secretary recognises and has reiterated the value of an independent regulator in this space. Nevertheless, a lot of swirling around and criticism of the OBR. Would the Chief Secretary or the Chancellor like just to remind people about the role of the Fiscal Risks and Sustainability Report, which does look longer term at the economy, and the importance this has in the planning, and as the Chief Secretary said, the Chancellor's as a point that it is not a destiny just because of the figures, but this report is particularly useful in this respect.
Chancellor.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I have huge respect for the Office for Budget Responsibility and I reappointed Richard Hughes for a second term earlier this year. We deeply regret the publication of the budget document ahead of the budget. Richard Hughes has apologised for that and he's resigned, but I thanked him for his leadership of the OBR. But my honourable friend is right to point to the longer term risks that the OBR also point out, and that's why at the budget we took measures like what we did on electric vehicles and on high value properties, because we need to reform the tax system so it works for the future.
Brother.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The cost of delivering public services in rural Britain is higher than it is in urban areas. The cost of accessing services in rural places like West Dorset is higher for communities than it is in urban Britain. Will the Treasury commit to reviewing the funding formula so that local government, ICBs, the police, the fire services, all of our vital community services get the funding that rural communities deserve?
Minister.
Mr Speaker, the Ministry for Housing, Communities and Local Government recently published the English Indices of Deprivation 2025, which included the supplementary report on how deprivation manifests in rural areas. I can assure the honourable gentleman the government will further consider these assessments of deprivation as well as other inputs when deciding funding models for local areas.
Dave Robertson.
My constituents across Lichfield, Burntwood and the villages will be pleased to see the government taking action on the cost of living by reducing energy bills, but they will want those benefits to be felt fairly by all bill payers. Can I ask what steps the Chancellor will be taking with Cabinet colleagues to ensure that reductions in energy bills are reflected in standing charges and not just in unit prices?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Energy bills are too high. The Conservatives left Britain dependent on the rollercoaster of gas prices and left families paying almost £2 billion on their bills for their failed energy efficiency eco scheme. So we are scrapping eco and taking some of the expensive levies off bills. My honourable friend makes an important point on standing charges. He will know that Ofgem is continuing to look at low standing charge tariffs for exactly the reason he raises. And more generally, reducing energy bills is so important precisely because they are typically a higher share of disposable income for low-income households.
Wendy Chamberlain.
Thanks very much, Mr Speaker. There is agreement across this House on the importance of access to cash, but also the importance of access to banking services. It's critical for high streets in areas such as Cooper and Leven in my constituency. But when will the Government agree to have the FCA review the criteria in terms of access to banking services? Because 350 hubs is a meaningless number when communities continue to lose face-to-face services.
Minister.
Mr Speaker, I'm afraid I have to disagree with that 350 is a meaningless number, but we of course understand the importance of in-person banking to rural communities. The location of the banking hubs is determined independently by link, and the criteria are a matter for the FCA. But I regularly meet with MPs to discuss the adequacy and the application of those rules. In fact, I've got a banking hub surgery for members of Parliament tomorrow, which would be more than welcome to join.
Jill Jarman.
Mr Speaker, I warmly welcome the second rise to the national minimum wage under this government, with 160,000 workers in Wales already benefiting since the rise in April. Many of these will be younger workers, particularly in the retail and hospitality sector, so important to my constituency in Clwyd North this Christmas and beyond. What assessment has been made of the impact of the rise in the national minimum wage on younger workers, and what progress has been made for equalising the national minimum wage for under 21s?
Minister.
Mr Speaker, around 300,000 young workers are expected to benefit from the national minimum wage increases in April 2026. The remit for the Low Pay Commission asked that they develop their preferred path and pace for the equalisation of the 18 to 20 national minimum wage and the national living wage. The 18 to 20 national minimum wage rate from April 2026 makes steps towards this commitment.
Alison Bennett.
The government seems set on pushing through with the family farm tax, despite opposition on these benches and indeed on theirs.
Shame.
Despite this, will the Minister at least revisit the forestalling clause, which would help older farmers in mid-Sussex and across the country avoid the consequences of backdating this legislation?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Look, we at the budget came forward with a revision to the policy to support those people whose spouses have already passed away and made the allowance transferable between the spouses. That is a change will reduce the number of farms that are affected by the agricultural property relief changes from around 500, as was estimated at last budget, to now 375 when coupled with some changes to the underlying economic forecasts. This policy raises money from those with the largest estates in a fair way, and I would encourage members on all sides of the House to consider whether or not we need to... Well, I'll stop there, Mr. Speaker.
Alison Young.
Dennis is a British electric bus manufacturer employing more than 700 people in Scarborough. Major bus contracts are due to go live in early 2026. Will the Minister confirm that this government is backing British-built buses over Chinese imports? And can he confirm that the changes to public procurement processes will be implemented in time for taxpayers' money to be spent on buying British buses?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have a proud history of manufacturing in this country, including in my honourable friend's constituency, and we will capitalise on that history as we drive our future growth. The UK is a leader in bus manufacturing, and the government is committed to supporting the sector, including through the Department for Transport's UK Bus Manufacturing Expert Panel. Mr. Speaker, as a government, we want to back British buses, unlike the SNP.
The government created the National Wealth Fund to encourage investment in innovation in sectors critical, such as clean energy and sustainable aviation fuel. So how will the Chancellor make sure that the Wealth Fund will use different and maybe even better risk criteria than existing commercial banks and financial entities?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the National Wealth Fund is at the forefront of public investment, investing in early-stage companies and projects to support innovation, boost jobs and create growth. It will work closely and collaboratively with other public financial institutions like the British Business Bank, Innovate UK and UK Research and Innovation to support innovative companies across the UK.
Sarah Owen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Removing the two-child benefit cap means that 5,000 children in Luton North will be lifted out of poverty. Many live in households where parents work but and still do not meet. Does the Chancellor agree that action like this and the Youth Guarantee Scheme will end the vicious cycle of poverty for good?
Chancellor.
I thank my honourable friend for this question and all the campaigning work that she has done on it. The two-child limit, combined with the changes we're making around free school meals, the warm homes discount, capping the cost of school uniform, rolling out more childcare to more families, will lift more families, more children out of poverty. And it is worth noting that around 70% of kids who are growing up in poverty are in a family where someone works.
Stephen Bott.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Office for Budget Responsibility shows that welfare spending will be £32 billion a year more at the end of this Parliament, just as a result of decisions in the last budget. Why was the Chancellor not more honest in the Labour Party manifesto about the choices she wanted to take?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The welfare state the party opposite created is failing, and we are changing it. Welfare spending rose 3 times as fast under the party opposite than it did under this one because they created a broken welfare system. And to repeat, Mr. Speaker, we will change it.
Antonia Banks.
Very much, Mr. Speaker. Last week I went to Anacast in Wednesbury, one of our brilliant foundries. I've also been to Newby foundries, and both have told me of their relief that the landfill tax is not going to impose significant additional costs on them. I wonder if the Chancellor would like to set out the action she is taking to support our brilliant manufacturing and automotive industries at this budget.
So, Chancellor.
I thank my honourable friend for that question. We're backing building and getting Britain building with the planning and infrastructure bill that passed yesterday. I think without the support of the party opposite, but frankly, we don't need them. And we are backing our automotive sector with changes to the ECOS scheme, the electric car grant, and so much more. We're backing the British manufacturing industry, both automotives, buses, trains and everything else.
Stephen Flynn.
Mr. Speaker, prior to the election, the Daily Record reported the Chancellor having said that Labour will be as economically radical as Thatcher. Well, with the closures at Grangemouth and Mossmore, uncertainty over the Acorn project and 1,000 jobs being lost every month in the North Sea, have I finally found a promise that this Chancellor's kept?
Well, Mr. Speaker, as the honourable gentleman knows, we are backing Grangemouth and have put money into the Acorn carbon capture and storage project. We're taking £150 off people's energy bills in Scotland, and in England and Wales, NHS waiting lists are falling. I wonder why they're still increasing in Scotland.
Rachel Black.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Short-term
Mr. Dugan, what is it about you? Always wanting to shout at the wrong time, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Short-term lets cover up to 20% of homes in parts of my constituency. Not only are they eroding communities, I'm concerned that they are not fully paying their tax. What steps will the Chancellor take to address the fact that data from Airbnb suggests that as many as 6,000 homes are being let on short-term lets and vanishingly few are actually registered to pay business rates? Will she meet with me to discuss this issue and how we can recover the tax up to hundreds of millions?
Yes, will do.
I thank my honourable friend for her question and her continued campaigning on this issue that I know is so important to her constituents. For those who seek to bend the rules, the companies like Airbnb now send HMRC data on all their hosts. Where hosts fail to provide the detail that HMRC requires, Airbnb stop the payments until they do so, Mr. Speaker. But we do need to go further, and I will meet with my honourable friend to discuss this.
Brilliant, Simon Hall.
In the hope that the government had listened to the NFU and others, a North Dorset farming family sat in expectation to the Chancellor's statement for the budget. They were disappointed with the announcements on the family farm tax. He withdrew his medical treatment. 3 days later, he died. So determined was he to keep that family farm within his family, and knowing the struggle that they would have had to have met the tax bills post the 1st of April. I share that not to be inflammatory. I just wanted to make sure that the Treasury bench knows that their decision on the family farm tax has direct consequences to people up and down the country.
Minister.
I thank the honourable member for that question. The Treasury bench is fully aware of the fact that changes to inheritance tax do, of course, have an effect on those who are older. That is why we have made sure that we have, in the changes that we have put forward that affect both agricultural property and business property, we have a higher allowance with an extra £1 million, and we have a tax rate that is half as low as everyone else pays. We think that these reforms that do raise money in a fair and sustainable way will both contribute to us to be able to raise the revenue that we need and do so in a way that protects family farms. But of course, we understand that there will be impacts on people. That's why we've designed the policy in the way that we have, and we've come forward, Mr. Speaker, with the changes that we announced at the budget just a few weeks ago.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 2024, £6,200. 2025, £15,000. 2026, £19,100 after discounts. Independents are really struggling now with the revaluation of business rates. Will the Minister meet with York High Street Forum to really understand the challenge it brings to my city?
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, I would be happy to speak with my honourable friend about the issues that she raises in her constituency.
Rupert Lowe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Chancellor has embarked on a Fabian programme of brutal tax and spend economics that might please the dwindling number of Labour voters, but is hollowing out the nation's productive base. Those who take risk, invest long-term and create high-quality jobs are increasingly voting with their feet. Record numbers of top earners, the rainmakers who actually bankroll public services, are leaving the UK for good, taking their wealth, but more importantly, their brain power with them. Does the Chancellor even begin to understand the lasting and irreversible damage she is causing to the British economy?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We've all watched the honourable member voting with his feet by leaving the bunch of crazies that he was part of before this. Now, let's get back to what this government is actually doing to drive growth, increasing public investment by £120 billion over this Parliament and making sure things get built. Building housing, a default yes for developments around train stations. Building transport, the Lower Thames crossing, the expansion of Heathrow and Gatwick airports. Energy at Sizewell and Wilfer. This is a government backing the builders month after month after month.
Next bit.
Mr. Speaker, the Pensions Minister was brilliant at the budget at helping our mining communities across the UK. Can I, though, ask for an update on plans for the changing of the surplus sharing arrangements for both the Miners' Pension Scheme and the British Coal Staff Superannuation Scheme?
Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My honourable friend has been a powerful campaigner for these pension schemes to those surpluses to be shared with their members. He knows that we've made an announcement at the budget to make sure that the coal scheme surplus is shared with its members, and I know that the trustees are bringing forward their proposals on the sharing of future surpluses.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The budget cut the VCT tax relief that allowed investors to back Britain's fastest growing companies. How can the Chancellor claim to support our entrepreneurs, which is cutting off the funding they rely on?
Chancellor.
Well, I hosted an event last night for entrepreneurs, and speaking at it with the chief executives of Quantexa and of Motorway, both of whom welcomed the changes that we'd made to support entrepreneurs at the budget, particularly the changes we'd made around EMI, EIS, VCT, and also the 3-year stamp duty holiday for companies choosing to list here in Britain. We're backing entrepreneurs in Britain, and they're backing our changes.
That completes questions. We'll let the front bench change over. Before we come to the urgent question on Operation Kenova, I remind the House that there is an ongoing waiver to allow limited reference to any active legal proceedings relating to the historical troubles-related deaths. Any references to such cases should be limited to the context and to the events that led to the cases, but not to the detail of the cases themselves, nor the names of those involved in them. Members should always take special care to avoid saying anything that might interfere with the course of justice. Can I say, I thought it wouldn't have been a WMS, I thought it would have been a statement to the House. When all the news channels are carrying such a major subject, I really do think this House will have had the benefit. That's why I've granted the UQ. Right, Gavin Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I am grateful for you granting this urgent question to ask the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland if he will make a statement on the latest publication from Operation Kenova and the Government's response to its findings.
I'm grateful to the Right Honourable Gentleman for his question, and I want to inform the House that I will be laying a written ministerial statement on this matter later today. Operation Kenova has published its final report, which covers the activities of the alleged agent Steakknife, as well as other investigations referred to it by the PSNI. I want to begin by commending the Kenova team, led by Sir Ian Livingston and John Boucher, for the exemplary way they carried out their work, built trust with families, put victims first, and provided many answers about what happened to their loved ones. Operation Terma, which was part of Kenova, resulted in the prosecution of an individual now extradited from Ireland and awaiting trial for the murder of 3 RUC officers in 1982. Kenova has set a standard for future legacy investigations, and we've drawn on a number of those lessons in drafting the Troubles Bill. I wish to express my heartfelt condolences to all the families who lost loved ones in the appalling circumstances described in this sobering report. Operation Kenova was asked to establish whether there was evidence of criminal offences by the alleged agent known as Steakknife or their alleged handlers. The behaviour described of the alleged agent and their role in the provisional IRA is deeply disturbing. It should not have happened. And in recent decades, there have been significant reforms to agent handling practice, including through legislation. The use of agents is nowadays subject to strict regulation, overseen by the Investigatory Powers Commissioner and the Investigatory Powers Tribunal. On Operation Kenova's request to the government to name Steakknife, I told Sir Ian Livingstone in August that, and I quote, "Due to ongoing litigation relevant to the neither confirm nor deny policy, namely the Thompson Supreme Court appeal, a substantive and final response to your request will be provided after judgment has issued in that case." The government's first duty is, of course, to protect national security, and identifying agents risks jeopardising this. Today's report also makes public the high-level findings of Operation Denton, which looked at killings carried out by the UVF Glenanne gang. The behaviour reported on, including collusion by individual members of the security forces, is shocking. The government will respond to the full Denton report when it is published, bearing in mind that there are related legal proceedings ongoing in this case and in the case of Steakknife. The government responded to a number of the other recommendations in the interim Kenova report in August. This is available in the library and is also addressed in the written ministerial statement.
Mr. Speaker, can I thank the Secretary of State for that response and for being here this afternoon, to discuss Operation Kenova. I know that when the Secretary of State was appointed, he has spent an inordinate amount of time on legacy, and I know that he is committed to the principles of not rewriting the past and of ensuring that issues can be explored to the fullest degree. He knows that in Northern Ireland, peace was only secured because of the actions of our intelligence services, our armed forces and brave members of the RUC. He knows that the IRA were brought to their knees by the activities of our intelligence services. And he also knows that the IRA were riven by agents of the state. Both Dennis Donaldson, the Director of Operations for Sinn Féin, and Freddie Scappaticci, the Head of the Internal Investigations Unit, also known as Steakknife. Can I ask the Secretary of State, does he welcome the finding of Operation Kenova that there was no high-level state collusion between paramilitaries, loyalist paramilitaries, and members of the army or the security forces? Does he recognise the important role that our intelligence services did play in securing peace in Northern Ireland? Does he recognise that the IRA were riven by informers? Does he realise the absurdity of maintaining the position that Operation Kenova could not name Freddie Scappaticci as Steakknife? Does he recognise, in the findings relating to the Dublin and Monaghan bombings, that the UK state authorities had no information or intelligence that could have prevented those bombings? And does he recognise, in the context of the debate we are having on legacy, that there are too many inquiries he is letting pass by without highlighting the lack of accountability on the Dublin government, on the Republic of Ireland and their role in supporting the IRA? And we cannot wait until the conclusion of his legislative process or inquiry after inquiry until they open their books, share their stories, and indicate in the basis of truth and justice the role they played in our troubled past.
To the right honourable gentleman for those points, and I join him in recognising the huge contribution that was made by the intelligence services and by the Army and by the RUC and other security forces during the Troubles to try and keep people safe and to defeat those who were trying to destroy society as a result of their terrorism. And we all recognise that. and the responsibility for the killing of around 1,700 people, the murder, often in the most brutal circumstances, and in some cases killing people, burying them, and then for a long time providing no information as to where the remains of people's loved ones were to be found, rests with the Provisional IRA. And I echo the comments that were made in the interim report and in the final report about what they did. I note, of course, what the report has to say in not finding any evidence of high-level collusion between the security forces and loyalist paramilitaries, in particular the UVF, in respect of the work of the Glenanne gang, as they have been called. But I do notice what they said about individual collusion. And I use the word shocking deliberately, because to learn now that serving police officers, so Operation Kenova reports, and serving members of the armed forces were colluding with those who were murdering people, a very large number of people, over 120 people were murdered by that gang. On the final point that he raises about all of us wishing to learn from the past, and I think in order to learn from the past, one has to try and tell the truth about the past, I would simply draw his attention to the framework agreement reached between the UK government and the Irish government in September, the steps that have been taken, which he and I have debated many times before, by the Irish government to cooperate with the OMA inquiry, and the commitment that they have given to the fullest possible cooperation with a reformed legacy commission, which the government's Troubles Bill is seeking to put in place with the consent and will of the House. And I hope that all members would welcome that, because the more information we can get about what happened, the more families will be able to find out exactly what took place in respect of their loved ones.